Quick as I can open my book to the proper page. Gilmer, could you do our invocation for us, please?
Do that. Let's pray. Our Father, we are always thankful that we live in a country that we can gather together peacefully and to join our citizens together and to discuss things that affect so many of us. We ask that you guide us and direct us, give us wisdom, help us to understand the problems and find solutions. Pray that you'll help us to always understand that we are representing the citizens and the people of this county, and we are to do what is best for them. We ask for that guidance in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I am going to request the addition of the same items for our regular meeting that I did for our work session, with the understanding that we won't be voting on anything. We'll just be discussing it and perhaps just coming to an agreement on it. And that would be directly under new business, the first thing, budget amendments and a state patrol request. And do y'all have anything else, any other changes that you want to do?
I have no.
Then I will make that in the form of a motion that we accept the agenda with these changes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next item will be approval of the minutes. January 9th executive session meeting, January 9th work session meeting, January 10th public hearing meeting, and the January 10th regular meeting minutes. Are there any corrections to those minutes?
I have none. I'll make a motion we approve as written.
Okay, I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Sandy, would you give us a financial statement, please?
This is the financial statement for January 31st. Each department should be at 8% of their budget used. No departments were over budget at January 31st. Overall, we are at 6% of the total revenue budget received and 3% of the total expenditure budget used. Total revenue received to date, $1,316,291. Total expenditures to date, $722,489.
Okay, are there any questions on the financial statement? Okay, thank you, Sandy.
Thank you.
Discussion and possible action of equipment for the jury room. Dallas?
We discussed that yesterday in our workshop, and I'll just give a couple of quick announcements. Tomorrow will be a day for vendors that will be here in our county to talk about new technology, primarily and specifically for our courtrooms, for audio and visual needs, upgrading the systems that's been in place since this courthouse was built. And I would encourage anyone, it's not a public meeting as per se, but anytime between 9 and 4, county employees and interested people are welcome to just stop in as an open house and see what technology is available. Hopefully it gives us an idea of what to use for our courtrooms and the courthouse, and you might get ideas for even other departments. So I would pass that on. I would also like to say that Joanne has stepped up and been willing to help coordinate some of the paperwork and make that project move along. It does have budgeted money this year, so it does need to take action. We need to move on that. So I appreciate her stepping in and volunteering to help do some groundwork on that. So thank you, Joanne. That's really all, unless there's questions.
Any questions or comments? Okay. Next item would be the issue of budget amendments that we will be looking at more closely and actually voting on in the March meeting when we do our regular quarterly update on the budget. But there are things that I would like for us to hopefully agree on tonight because some of them we do need to move forward on. The first thing is for the fire department. We currently have $249,400 budgeted for a tanker truck. And what we're proposing here is to not purchase that tanker truck in 19 and instead to purchase turnout gear for our firefighters and air tanks for them. So my proposal will be in the March meeting that we move that money around, not necessarily out of the department, but for different functions within the department. Don't have really firm figures yet on the what the turnout gear and the air packs will cost us. So for now, what I'm proposing is we simply substitute dollar for dollar, and if anything changes more or less, we can discuss that more fully in March at the regular budget meeting. Are there any questions or concerns on that? Okay.
Charlie, if you don't mind, I think y'all brought some stuff, but I'd like to understand what turnout gear means real briefly. Is that something y'all would want to do?
Yep.
Turnout gear means the pants. I'm sorry. You're right, Scudder. Turnout gear means the pants, and the coat, boots, helmet, suspenders, gloves, and the hood that you put over. That's what we're asking for.
And this is what you use to actually go into fires and so forth with to protect you.
Yes, sir. This is what protects us. The SCBA's is we're bringing in our own air, and that's the air tanks you're referring to. This is gear that's somebody wears right now. If there's a fire right now, this is gear that's somebody's actually at work. This is theirs. I don't know if you want to see it.
No, that's what I wanted to see. Now, and the question is, do we need more of that stuff, or are we replacing what's old and worn out and out of?
Dallas, if I could address that, I had, after our work session yesterday, I asked Keith and Brian to give me an inventory of this. And I got that today from them. I appreciate y'all putting that together.
Good.
So what we've got, and I'll share with you, is every individual piece of turnout gear that we have, and its age and condition. The age of it, 10 years is what's typically an acceptable range for turnout gear. I would propose that we replace anything that's 9 years or older, just because we don't want to do this again next year. So what we're proposing is going through that list and just picking out those items that are old enough, or perhaps if they're not old enough, that may be damaged. And not necessarily replacing just wholesale everything, but those items that, because of age or condition, need to be replaced. And we have the same situation, the same inventory for the air packs.
Good. And I did not know that. I appreciate it. I didn't know he was a fireworks expert, but that's good.
We gave him a crash course today.
Oh, yeah,
that's right.
So that makes sense. I hear you.
I know.
Appreciate that.
Brian, that's something that you had asked for in the work session, so We do have that inventory down, and we will simply be replacing them on what's needed and not just wholesale replacement.
Thank you. Thank you, appreciate that.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions on the turnout gear or the air packs?
I hate to do this. One more question. Does not having the tanker truck, are we in any risk of changing our ISO rating? Because I think that's a key part of our ISO rating. If I,
Keith, you want to answer?
Musical chairs.
Safety in numbers.
At this point, sir, we're not at any risk in our ISO rating. So having the swap with the tanker truck and purchasing the much needed turnout gear will not affect our ISO rating. The gear that you saw us bring up here, just so you know, that gear was in service tonight. We swapped it out with one of the firefighters that's on the truck this evening. The jacket was from 2007 and the pants were from 2005. So they're well outside of the range of a 10-year NFPA standard, along with the air pack that I brought up here as well. So we're in dire need to get that equipment to keep our firefighters safe.
good, good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
No questions, and I'm in agreement, Charlie.
Any other questions? Okay. Carlene, is this something you would be okay with?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll simply just be in agreement on that until March, and then we'll make it official. The other thing, the other item proposed is to take $10,000 from the existing courthouse maintenance contingency fund to be used for cleaning the exterior of the courthouse. At this point, we're not even going to get into whether it's just pressure washing, painting, no painting, whatever. We'll have some experts come in and tell us what needs to be done. But what we'll be in agreement with tonight is the fact that it needs to be done, and it needs to be done pretty quickly. The money is there in the courthouse improvement contingency fund. We just need to allocate it to a specific purpose. So, y'all both okay with that?
Yes, as long as the professional comes in and gives us them.
Yeah, we'll have that.
Right.
Okay.
No, good.
And we won't do anything that at least two of us didn't approve, in a vote. So,
Okay.
I mean, you're not going to come in with one that's been done.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. The other thing is, as you all may be aware, Chief Bridget has resigned from the fire department. And let me introduce, because I'm sure there's some folks here that don't know them. Keith and Ryan, if y'all will step back up here.
One more time.
One more time.
Come on down.
Now, we will be advertising. Well, first of all, let me say that I'm splitting the jobs out. We're no longer going to have just one public safety director that's also the fire chief and also the EMA director. I want to split those jobs out. For now, I'm not able to split out the EMA director because there's some certifications that we have to get in place first. So for now, what we're going to have is a fire chief's job and a public safety director / EMA director. We will be advertising those jobs both externally and internally over the next few weeks. But in the interim, Brian Scudder, I appointed him as the interim fire chief, and also Keith Casera has been appointed as the interim public safety director / EMA director. So these folks are going to be making sure that everything runs smoothly and remains safe for now and going forward. So yeah, appreciate y'all stepping up to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that was sort of a prelude to the fact that having separated those two positions, I need to provide another office for the public safety director. And I'm looking specifically to not have the public safety director housed within a fire station. I want it to be here in the courthouse. So I have requested up to $2,000 to use to convert some standing empty space now into an office for our new public safety director. Ideally, it won't cost that much. I know we converted some space into an office before for about, I think it was $1,300 by having our own people do it. I anticipate having our own people do it this time, but the estimate last time, if we had brought somebody in to do it, was $2,000, and I just want to make sure we're covered whichever way we have to go with it. So, with that in mind, do y'all have any objections to that?
No, we're good.
Okay, good. Okay, which brings us to the next topic, which is that I've been contacted by a representative from the Georgia State Patrol, and I've been told that the state of Georgia does not provide for the State Patrol certain pieces of equipment, and their instructions are to attempt to get that equipment from the counties that they serve. Now, this came up once before, and we provided them with some tasers a couple of years ago. Now the request is for replacement radar guns. The ones that they have are apparently so old that they're not serviceable anymore, or if they are serviceable, apparently they can be challenged. So the request was for 2 or 3, so I took that to mean 2. And the cost is from $2,000 to $2,500 each. So essentially a request of up to $5,000 total from the Georgia State Patrol. They did mention that they, with those radar guns, that they do contribute $125,600 to Gilmer County every year. So I would imagine maybe not very desirably, but they will pay for themselves. I'm sorry?
She said, get them 3 though.
Give them 3. You know, if that had come from anybody else but you, I would have believed you were serious.
Charlie, I think since the state has such a hard time finding money, and that we ought to go ahead and help the state out and provide that $5,000.
I agree.
I agree.
Okay. All right. So we'll make that an official change in March as well. But I'll go ahead and let you know that we'll be happy to hear that. Okay. The next item is that each year we have to approve a county vehicle list and a county property list. And we have compiled those lists. You'll have those. So at this time, I would make a motion that we do approve the county property and the county vehicle inventory list for 2019.
Second.
Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor? Aye. Next item is appointment of a member to the Joint Development Authority. Alan Davenport's term is expiring, and he is willing to serve again. I guess my first question would be, do y'all have any other candidates that you want to consider?
I do not.
Yeah.
Then I would make a motion that Alan Davenport be reappointed to the Joint Development Authority.
I'll second that, Charlie.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Discussion and possible action of special zoning for portable sawmill operations. This is a request that came to us from a member of the Planning and Zoning Board. And we actually discussed it in the work session as a separate item, but since then, Dallas has mentioned, and I completely agree, that since we're in the process of updating the land use anyway, that we, rather than considering this as its separate item on its own, that we simply include this in the discussions of the land use changes. So, do we have any discussion anybody would like to make on their comments? Okay.
Yeah, Alan was not able to be here tonight, so that will give him a chance to be here as well to explain. So I think it's great.
Okay, that'll work. So then,
Should we just table that until we have our...
that's what I would suggest, is that we table it to the...
I'll make that motion to table this then, if it hadn't been made.
Yep. Second.
Okay, any comments? All in favor? All right. Final decision and recommendation by the Gilmer County Planning Commission for approval of the application of a 2019 River Outfitters license for Carter K River Experience. We're good on that, and with the insurance changes we mentioned yesterday.
I have not talked to him yet, this is renewable this month.
Okay, well,
He said it's in the works to be renewed, he said probably renewed by the time we have the meeting.
well, we can go ahead and approve his application and just let him know that if it's not renewed, the application will no longer be valid. But
And then
he won't be in
also,
compliance.
He needs to probably put it on a calendar year basis. right?
Exactly, yeah. Okay. On that basis, are y'all okay with it? Okay. Then I would make a motion that this application be approved.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now, this is one that we've talked about a little bit here, the adopting the first reader to the chapter titled Land Ordinance of the Gilmer County Code. I'm going to make a motion that this be tabled until such time as we have a special called work session to discuss it further and get more input.
Second.
Any comments or discussion on that? All in favor? Aye. Discussion and possible action of changing the Keep Gilmer Beautiful Committee to the Keep Gilmer Beautiful Board. We had decided the other day that we would table this. So I would make that motion that we table this.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Adopting the first reader to the article titled Board of Commissioners of the Gilmer County Code. Darlene, you want to take that one?
Sure. We've had discussion on this today at an open meeting earlier, and I'd like to make a motion to adopt the first reader regarding compensation and expenses of the Board of Commissioners, which is amending Section 3 of the Charter.
Okay, is there any discussion? I will second the motion. If there is no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
I'm going to continue to vote no for the reasons that I mentioned earlier, but
Okay.
we're good.
Okay. Resolution on 2019 tax anticipation note bids. We need to table this until next month because a question has come up regarding our current efforts to do some refinancing of a few of the bonds that we had left. And depending on how that goes, we can either go for a tax exempt TAN or a taxable TAN. And we just don't know which yet. So with that in mind, then I would make a motion that this be tabled.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
We have some rezoning requests. The first one is Michelle Raphael. 582 Cinnamon Lane, request from A1 Agricultural to A1 Agricultural with conditional use. This would be, request is for a farm, winery, and a tasting room, and a wedding and other events venue.
Charlie, I have to ask clarification again, whether we had two applications that we're going to vote separately or one.
Well, we do have one that we'll vote without the venue. I think, David, you make sure I'm right on this. I think what we'll be doing, we'll be voting to accept the, or decline the conditional use. I see no reason why we can't make that, you know, if we want to approve the tasting room in the vineyard and not the venue or any other combination, I don't see any reason why we can't do that. Just pick and choose which ones we'll approve.
It is two conditional uses that are before you, is the winery and then the wedding venue. So, and the planning commission took it in 2 votes as well, and that's reflected in the planning commission report to y'all. So,
now, is the tasting room, would that vote be with the winery or with the venue?
no, it would be with the winery, the farm winery tasting room.
Okay. I don't believe there was a lot of objection to the winery itself, was there, Karen? Okay. Well, since we're going to need 2 different votes, I'm going to make a motion that the winery and the tasting room be approved.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. I see a lot of problems with the venue, particularly a large venue, and I have received a number of comments from neighbors that oppose that. I believe, Karen, you said there was opposition to that?
There was questions.
There were questions,
raised
okay.
And just asked about
Okay.
our opinion.
Right,
Questions of things. There was 1 or 2 people like Gary that just asked the questions and then straight away answered.
Jim, from a county road perspective, what will a large venue at that particular spot do to us?
Well, I just learned about the large venue. I actually visited the site and met with the owners back last month. And I was looking at it from the winery and the tasting room. Old Flat Branch Road is a narrow tar and chip road, 2-lane. And as I understand the ordinance, the large venue allows for over 1,000. That would mean if you averaged 2 persons per vehicle, that you could potentially be putting 500 vehicles on Old Flat Branch Road, and that would be a challenge as that road exists today. Now, I looked at the proposed driveway that the property owners showed me, and it's a beautiful piece of property. And the driveway location, no problems from the winery and the tasting room perspective. But now, if we're talking about lumping in a large venue, then I'd want to look at it again. And if you ask me right now, I would have to say that I would not recommend to this board that you approve the large venue until we've had an opportunity to actually study it. And it goes back, Charlie, to the comments that I made during the public hearing, is that I really feel like, and especially we're in the country, and we want to maintain that. And if you're talking about putting those volumes of traffic
Yeah.
on then there might have to be some other improvements there that, in my estimation, would be the responsibility of the developer or the owner, not the citizens of the county.
Mhm.
And I stand by that, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
I think there was a misunderstanding on Jim's numbers. It's anything over 50 vehicles. You can go, there's not a maximum, but you start at 51 in order
For a
to
large
ask for a
venue.
conditional for
Yeah.
large.
Okay.
And I think, though, what Jim was saying was that the number of people that could be legitimately at a venue, a large venue, could be 500 cars.
Oh, yeah. If there's no maximum.
Right, okay.
Up to 50 is considered small.
Right.
And permitted use.
Right, okay. All right.
I can only compare that to the venue that we have on Mulkey Road. I guess that's the only other large venue.
Are either of the other vineyards, Ingelheim or Chateau Maitre, are they considered large?
They've not applied.
They're not outdoor venues. They're just tasting rooms, as I understand
Oh,
it.
But they are not needed to be approved for large venues.
But they could apply for
They could
a
replace it.
small
Okay.
outdoor recreation venue. They could apply for that because that is permitted.
And they don't have to apply.
And so it's not a conditional use for the small. And that's true here in this case. This could apply and would be without a hearing or conditional use, could be applied for a small wedding and events venue for this property. May or may not be what the owner desires, but that's available.
I'm looking at this application some more, and I think there was a little confusion yesterday. They're not actually applying for a recreational facility large, are they?
Wedding events.
Right, and then we keep referencing the term large and small.
That's where the number comes from.
In the ordinance,
The wedding and events
The
venues.
only,
in
if
the
you look
ordinance.
at the chart of permitted and conditional uses, are those three separate items on that list?
Yeah, the wedding and events venue has its own definition.
Without large and small.
Yeah. So,
So there is no limit,
Automatic.
small or large, is what you're telling me, David?
no, there's, if I recall, there's a vehicle limitation, but not for, I want to make certain that not for consideration is the large recreational facility. It's just simply a wedding and events facility, which would be, as y'all see there, weddings and private parties and religious milestone celebrations and the like. And
But those would be limited to 50 vehicles, would they not?
well, it didn't have a vehicle limitation to it, but that was what was considered at the previous conditions. And I believe y'all made that a conditional use, so that may be what you want to do is give the conditional use to the applicant for that wedding event facility and limit it to a 50. That's where it came into play, is 50 vehicle maximum.
Right. Okay.
Or the Deep South wedding, I cannot remember, but I believe it was 50 vehicle maximum, or it may have been a 200 person attendance.
I think what happened on that was the 50 vehicle maximum was what they were trying to get conditional use above that.
But
And it was my
David,
understanding that they did.
that was
But now you said
that was for a large.
Yeah, that one was a recreational applicant. They
That's a
were
different-
applying for a recreational
That was
facility.
because we didn't have wedding.
That's correct.
Okay.
The ordinance had not been changed, so the reference to a large, small, it doesn't need to come into play for y'all's consideration this evening. Really, what needs to come into play is just whether or not that conditional use for a wedding an events facility is appropriate. And then again, you can put a restriction on the number of attendees or vice versa on the vehicles.
But, okay, so, but the wedding and events venue is something that is considered conditional use approval. Is that correct? Or is it permitted?
I'm sure it's conditional, but I'll confirm it. Yes, it's conditional in an A1 district.
All right. Well, I can't support this for the numbers we've been discussing. I could support it up to a maximum of 50 vehicles or 100 people.
100 people?
Figuring 2 people per vehicle.
And isn't Deep South Farm, do you know what their verbiage is?
But this is a totally separate thing.
I understand that, but it's a wedding venue that we approved.
No, they actually were approved for a large recreational venue.
Which was more than wedding, or separate from wedding venue.
Now, as a wedding venue,
Graduation parties, religious milestone celebrations, holiday parties, private parties, corporate meetings, and the like, which may have large open rooms or banquet halls, which may have live or recorded music or entertainment. So
and that's wedding.
that's the wedding and events. Yeah, that's a lot of that.
Those things can be approved.
Yeah. And again, again, I think y'all's approach in the past has always been on the attendees or the vehicles, whichever. Attendees is probably the safer thing because you pack a bunch of people in vehicles.
True. Well, I would probably be willing to support a little higher number than 100 on the attendees if we're not going to be talking about limitation on vehicles, but I couldn't see going over about 150.
In that space and on that, I could see 200 or less myself, if I was, but I still think that's it's a large 200-acre property that has a 2-lane road. I understand that, but I would be okay with going up to 200, but
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
One of the things as a planner that we look at, where the venue would be accessed. If it was Cinnamon Lane, I would question that. Now, if it were accessed off of Oak Flat Branch in the area that I visited with the property owners, I think they could make that work for smaller numbers, not 1,000. But Cinnamon is, I mean, it's just not conducive to commercial type operations.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a residential road, you know.
Yeah.
But now, if they were using the driveway, and I don't know if the folks are here, yes, they are.
Yeah.
If they were using the proposed driveway that they showed me, then I could see it working, but not off of Cinnamon. So those are the kinds of things that we need to be thinking about, is, you know, the accessibility, how you're going to deal with the people and the traffic and things of that nature in anything, not just this one, but, you know, adjacent to them is the mushroom farm. And I anticipate lots of vehicular traffic in years to come coming from that operation there. So those are the kinds of things that we have to think about when we're thinking about our county rules.
If we approve this with limitation of either 150 or 200 people, and if it was coming off Old Flat Branch, what do you think would be the impact and potential cost to the county?
Well, if it was coming off of Oak Flat Branch, Mr. Chairman, they have room there, and I've looked at it a couple of times. If they were so in mind to build storage for traffic coming off, and it's kind of in a curve, that's why I say they can deal with it off of Oak Flat Branch a lot easier than they can off of Cinnamon. Off of Cinnamon, they don't have a lot of options, you know. So I would feel more comfortable if the access was coming off of Old Flat Branch rather than off of Cinnamon, with provisions built in there for decel, storage of traffic getting in there, you know. So
The decel though.
I haven't seen any plans or anything like that. But yeah, the devil's in the details when you start looking at stuff like that.
And I'm basing my numbers off of our other larger vineyards that hold and host events already in those numbers, and the roads that you take to get to there. So keeping that in mind with what we already have approved.
Alex, what are your thoughts on?
Well, I definitely think that the not having a maximum limit, if we leave it at an open number, I think we will have some excessive use and burdensome use of our streets and transportation areas. That is a concern, I think. So limiting that to and setting a constraint on that is the right thing to do. And there was confusion on my part, David, as to the large and small outdoor venues versus the wedding venue category. So that changes my understanding here a little bit. So I think I would be agreeable if we put that limitation on the volume.
Okay. What I would propose, I believe, would be to approve it with limitations. And that would be conditioned on no more than 200 people, that ingress and egress be from Old Flat Branch Road, and that any expenditures related specifically to that, such as a deceleration lane, would be the responsibility, the cost would be the responsibility of the owners of the facility that would be causing that need. And that would be determined on your final determination on what was needed. Does that sound fair to you? If that sounds fair to y'all, I'll make that in the form of a motion.
I can second that.
Okay, any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. The next zoning is Patrick and Audra Malaguti, 162 Paris Arnold Drive, from R1 residential low density to R1 residential with conditional use. And this is to place an RV on the property permanently as a guest house. I know that we do have an indication that the septic system has been approved by the health department for that. I think they're.
Did Andrea make concerns? She here?
No, Andrea's not here.
Charlie, I've looked at this property. We're talking 1.18 acres. Actually quite pretty property along Tails Creek itself. In fact, very close to the creek, and has been there for many years, actually, as far as I understand the history. Was family owned prior to the current owners purchasing it. My first thought was that 1.18 acres is not what I would expect to see two permanent dwellings. I don't care if it's a tiny home or a double wide or a stick built or an RV. I actually did meet with the landowners, and part of their discussion was that this would provide a place for their family, grandkids, and family to attend periodically. It would be set up so that it would be meeting the water and sewer requirements that the health department has, which they did meet with. That's official benefit. They had the test for the soil done, so everything's been done that way. Had that not been done to verify that they can use that land with the septic that has been approved, I would not myself approve this. But with that approval of the septic and that, I have no real argument to not do this, because we do not prevent a guest home from being an RV in any of our ordinances or that. It's not explicitly ruled out that I'm aware of or could find. So I think it's a permissible use. It's quite rural, quite isolated. A few family homes around there, but it's not on 282 directly or visible. I can see no real reason to deny it, but in the longer term, I think it's a little stretch to put an RV as a guest home. I think that's something we need to look at and consider. That can be, I think, future problems for me, especially on these small lots like this. And it almost gets into that tiny home question. I think if I read this in the health department, they could literally put a tiny home in there at some point in time in place of an RV. Is that?
I'm not sure, because their permit says RV home. I'm not sure.
So it is specified.
She was specific, or he was specific, RV home. But if they traded it out, they'd have to go back to the environmental health and.
Start over. Okay, okay.
Karen, is the placement of the RV and also any field lines for the septic system outside the 50-foot EPD limitation for the creek?
Yeah, they would not approve a septic system in the, they have the 50-foot street over themselves.
So everything, RV, everything's outside the buffer?
Yes, and that RV would be movable, so we wouldn't hold the septics. Now, if they take the wheels off, make it permanent, fixture.
Well, I'm not wild about the idea, but as Natalie says, there's really nothing that prohibits what they're suggesting. And without something to fall back on, I would hate to.
I did get an indication that would allow them, if they wished, in other times of the year, to actually take that RV and use it as an RV as well. So they have, in their mind, I think, had both permanent use and travel use of it. So that was part of their thinking, as I understand it. I don't like it because of the size of the parcel that we're dealing with. In other areas, we have refused. This bothers me because in other areas, we have refused to provide septic for lots bigger than this that didn't meet, quote, the minimum. And so I don't like being inconsistent that way. But that's the only thing I see that bothers me. But for this one, I can accept. I guess I'll go ahead and make the motion that we approve this application.
Okay. I'll second the motion. Any further discussion?
Carlene, you visited, any thoughts I want to hear?
I did, I don't feel good with it.
Yeah.
I'll let you two take them. 'Cause I don't know.
I understand.
Okay, if there's no further discussion then, all in favor?
Aye.
That's enough. All right. Next item is for Stephen Keeter, R1 residential to C1 commercial, to make the property more marketable. This particular piece of property does have C1 around it, and honestly, in looking at it, I can't see a whole lot of other use for it than C1. So, personally, I'd be okay with it. So I'll go ahead and make a motion then that it be approved.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. The L.J. Gilmer Water and Sewer Authority would like to build a water tank on Udoke Road. And I think they should. So I'm good with it. And I'll go ahead and make the motion that this be approved, and ask if there's any other discussion on it.
Second.
No questions.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Lloyd and Gloria Clark, 73 Cantrell Road, residential, low density to A1 agricultural. This is for a farm winery, and originally for a venue, but as I understand it, the only thing we can really vote on tonight would be the rezoning from R1 to A1 without voting on the merits of any kind of a venue or farm winery. So I find it a little difficult on that because I'm okay with this for a farm winery, but if we go ahead and approve A1 tonight, that opens up an awful lot of possibilities that wouldn't have to come through us anymore. So I'm hesitant, but at the same time, I believe that farm wineries are an excellent choice for Gilmer County. I think they fit in well with the agricultural and rural atmosphere of the county, and personally would far rather see a farm winery than any number of other potential things that could be done on agricultural land. So I'm going to take a kind of a leap here and say that I would be okay with approving the rezoning to A1.
It is 10 acres or a little more, and it's kind of bordered with both agriculture and lots of residential, so it's a pretty rural area, even though there's a lot of lots that have been donated or notated as residential. think I'm expressing exactly the same things you have, Charlie, on this.
I guess my real concern is that I feel like the farm winery would be a good fit there. I don't necessarily feel that a number of other things that could be done in A1 would be a good fit there.
Yes, I agree with that. I agree. I think we could.
David, tell me again why we have to not vote on the farm winery part.
There were 2 action items that were before the planning commission board. Now, I did not attend that meeting, but as I've been told, the first item was the redistricting from an R1 to an A1, and that one passed without any issues, if I'm not mistaken. There was some, and so that would be the only item that would be up for consideration before y'all here tonight, is just simply to change it from an R1 land use district to an A1 land use district. But at that meeting, there was an additional item that was up on there, and I don't have the application here, but it was a conditional use for a farm winery, if I'm not mistaken. And there was tremendous opposition, tremendous attendance and opposition to that, as I understand.
Opposition to the farm winery.
Absolutely. From the, I would assume, be the residents in that general neighborhood and vicinity. And what happened at the meeting, and I guess the chairman at that time, they didn't call for an action, and the ordinance provides that they have to make a recommendation, they either approve or to deny. But at that meeting, they didn't make a recommendation; they just let it die, so to speak. And so that's why it's got to come back up before the planning and zoning board this next month.
What stops us from sending this whole thing back to them and telling them send it back with action on both items?
Well, the only thing that really stops you is if they really should be treated independent of each other.
I understand, but I'd feel better approving one if I was about to vote on the other.
Yeah, that may require them to, from a timing perspective, it's probably going to kick it out because they'll have to probably re-advertise both items, and I don't know from a date perspective if it can be put back on that agenda and anything re-noticed, can it, Karen? Yeah, so yeah, it would most likely result in the applicant being denied that opportunity to have an official action on this at this meeting, and probably would not allow it to occur until probably the maybe April, March meeting, or May meeting for y'all. That would be the outcome.
I see in this request from the letter of intent, not only a farm winery and tasting room, but a wedding events as well.
And that's a conditional use as well. Now remember, just simply going from an R1 to an A1 doesn't allow them to enter into those conditional use. They've still got to come back before you for those conditional use. Okay. What this would do is let's just assume that y'all did vote to move it from an R1 to an A1, and they could have agricultural uses out there that were consistent with the ordinance that were permitted, and anything permitted. They wanted to do something conditional, and they do have a desire at this point in time to do something additionally and conditional, and that's that farm winery. That's got to come back before y'all for consideration for either an up or down vote on that. So you can send it back. I'm not saying that you can't, but they need to really be looked at independently. They don't travel. They travel together maybe procedurally for y'all's perspective, but they need to be treated separately from the applicant's perspective. Because if he or she fails on the farm winery, they still may desire the agricultural use district at the end of the day.
But we would want to know why.
For ag?
Well, if we're going to approve a change to A1 from R1, we'd want to know what they have in mind.
I've never been an advocate of that in the application. I've always felt that that was unfair to the applicant, because really all they want to do, if I'm the applicant and I want to go to an R2, what y'all should be considering is not necessarily the use of the property, so to speak, but does it fit within the permitted uses of the R2 district? Does it comport with what you would want that land? Because if they say that they're going to use it for something, there's nothing binding on them as far as that application is concerned unless you place.
And that's my problem with it. There's a lot of residential around in here.
Okay, see, now you're looking at it from a land use perspective. This is maybe it's a mixed and it's not compatible. There's incompatibility, so to speak, with the adjoining neighborhood. That is a planning issue, and by all means, you can look at it from that perspective. So if it's something that you feel like is incompatible with the existing subdivision, then you can deny the application.
Karen, tell me about the opposition. In the microphone, please. We may need to be able to
Charlie,
hear this clearly.
the CD just objected.
Okay, we'll give it a couple of minutes here before we hear from you.
Karen, y'all meet next Thursday, right?
Okay.
Okay, Karen, tell us about the opposition.
Well, a lot of it was just worried about the turning in off of Big Creek onto Cantrell and whether that would be conducive to the use. And then some of it was because when you turn on River Hill, the church is about a half a mile or maybe 2 or 3 tenths of a mile from Big Creek Road to the location of the church, which is probably, as a crow flies, a couple tenths of a mile from the property. And they just said they didn't feel like that it was meshing with their lifestyle in that area.
But now all of that opposition was central to the application for conditional use
That
for
was
a farm
all-
winery.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nothing was, they were not objective as far as it being an A1 zone, because the next door neighbor at 94 is farm. It's zoned residential, but he has farm. And, across the highway is farms as well. And there's a good bit of agricultural use in that area. There's a lot of residential, but there's a lot of agricultural use in the area as well.
About how many people were there in opposition?
I would say 20.
I did drive Charlie out to this property and looked at it. There is a lot of agricultural use out there. There is a farm right next door, but I mean, talk about the road, that Cantrell Road is a little gravel,
Yeah, single lane dirt road.
a very small.
But the opposition was in terms strictly to the farm winery and venue and not so much the A1.
Yes.
Well,
And there's a lot of frontage on Big Creek though.
Well, that is correct, and I met with the applicant out there. Their intention is to have their primary access off of Big Creek Road. We actually measured the site visibility there, and they fall within the limits of that. And I have encouraged them to stay away from much use of Cantrell Road, because Cantrell Road is a single, you can't even pass on it. But fortunately, they front on Big Creek Road, and actually part of this tract lies on both sides of Cantrell. So,
Both sides of Big Creek.
no, it lies on both sides of Cantrell.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't see that.
With residents, yeah. There is a part of,
Oh, okay.
but with residents all around.
No, there's a little, I see that, yeah.
well, given that there's a good bit of agriculture out there, they're not opposed to that, and that's all we're really talking about tonight. I'd be okay with supporting the change to A1. And then we can discuss the winery and the venue when it gets to us.
Yeah. Is that a motion? I'll second.
I'll make it a motion.
I'll second.
All right. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The last rezoning for William F. Dillard from R1 to C1, 0.32 acres to cure some encroachments. And I don't have a problem with it myself.
Yeah, I'm okay. I'll make a motion that we approve this application for the cure the encroachments with this.
Okay. Discussion and possible action of a budget amendment for UPS system for the E911. This is something that we need to replace the UPS system for 911. We want to make sure that we don't have a situation where power outage and a UPS failure because of the age and condition of the system might put people at risk. So we had approved in for the 2018 budget, $60,000 to replace this system. When it got right down to, okay, it's time to start taking action on this, we found that the original estimate that we had, that the 911 folks had for $60,000 apparently did not include labor. And so we're not looking at $60,000, we're looking at like $80,000. So as I said, the $60,000 is there, but we'll have to have an amendment to approve the additional $20,000. And in fact, things are fluid enough on that my recommendation would be that we approve it to $85,000 just in case. And hopefully that will not be the case, but I just don't want to have to delay this further and bring it back up again.
That'll be all capital, correct?
It's all capital, yes.
Including the labor.
Including labor.
Okay.
Yes. That would all be a capital item. So, with that in mind, I can't make a motion for that until March, but as with the other things, I would like for us to either agree or not agree that this is okay.
We should. I'll agree to move forward on that in March.
Okay, good. Okay, we have an application for a River Outfitters license for Coosawattee River Resort. And I think everything's in order on that, given the insurance stipulations. So I would make a motion that that be approved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
We need to appoint 5 members to the Gilmer County Land Conservation Advisory Board. I have 4 people who have agreed to that. And what I would propose is that we appoint those 4, and I'll try to have a 5th one for our next meeting, whether it be a special meeting or regular. The names that I have right now are Matt Watkins, Alan Davenport, Carlene Ferguson, and David Clark. And I would make a motion that we appoint those folks to the Land Conservation Advisory Board.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Discussion and possible action of a lease for the Friends of Gilmer County Animal Shelter. This would be to place a storage building on the property next to the storage building that is there for the animal shelter's use. These are folks who work closely with the animal shelter. previously in terms of pulling animals out to try to find homes for them back when the animal shelter was a high-kill shelter. Now that we've got the transports and we're able to move animals through pretty well, they've changed their focus to providing either free or low-cost certificates for spay and neuter, so that people that normally maybe couldn't afford that could go ahead and get that done with their pets and try to sort of stem the problem at the source, so to speak, and have fewer animals that would end up there to begin with. They have some equipment and so forth that they'd like to store, and they would be buying the building. We have plenty of space out there. My recommendation would be that we approve a contract that David will write up for us to allow them to lease sufficient space to put their storage building. And I'll make that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
We have an appointment of a member to the Airport Advisory Board. I believe this will be replacing Don Murray, who has resigned from the board. And the request is to appoint John Walker to that position. Do y'all have any other candidates to consider?
None.
Yeah.
Then I would make a motion that John Walker be appointed to the Airport Advisory Board to finish the unexpired term. I don't think they have terms on that board, do you? It'll just be an appointment. Okay. So I make a motion that we appoint John Walker to the Airport Advisory Board.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. We have a couple of resignations from the Keep Gilmer Beautiful Committee. Nancy DuBarton and Betsy Shepard have resigned. This is one that has terms associated with it. So the recommendation is that the unexpired term of Nancy DuBarton be filled by Jim Harris, and the unexpired term of Betsy Shepard be filled by Karen Vitelli. And I would make a motion to that.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Discussion, well, we put you last again.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
No, it's no problem.
Okay. Discussion and possible action of a resolution for the Gilmer County Water and Sewage Authority for a Community Development Block Grant. This will be a sort of a resubmission, I guess, of the same request that was made last time. Last time it wasn't approved, but it came pretty close. And I think this time there's a feeling that there's a high chance that it can be approved. Same thing as last time. We need a resolution from us to authorize them to apply for that grant, and I would make a motion that we approve that.
I will second that. And Gary, about how many, feet or miles, how do you measure the effort out there?
I think this particular project, we're looking at about trying to get in about 7 miles.
7 miles.
And this is about 750,000 at 100%.
100%, 750,000.
Okay. What's not to love?
I seconded it.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So we come to the part of the meeting for citizens wishing to speak. Anybody that would like to say anything on any subject? He beat you to it, but as soon as he finishes, if you'll go up to the
Brian Pritchard, I'm not going to take the time up to reiterate my 4 o'clock comments at the public hearing. So some of this for some people out there may be a little bit not pieced together, but so I'm not going to go through that. I know first of all, I want to thank the 2 gentlemen here with fire, rescue, EMS, public safety. I appreciate you very much. I appreciate you stepping up and as the interim and doing the job you are now. And I really appreciate you bringing that equipment tonight and showing us what we do spend our money on as taxpayers. So I want to tell you how much I appreciate that. I know sometimes you don't like it when I ask you for a number because I'm not trying to hold you to it, but our trash in the county. Now, solid waste, the trash, what does that cost this county per year? Is it $400,000, $600,000? What is it around about a year? You don't have to give me a solid number, but if you want to do that.
I got the budget right here. Sandy, do you know offhand?
What's that? What do we have a year that costs us? Not. All right.
Now that's one I can give you an answer on fairly quickly here.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, what you have to do is take the expenditures and then take the revenue off of that.
No. I want to know the total, what it costs.
Oh, okay.
No. I don't want to take the revenue off right now, Mr.
Okay.
Smith.
Okay.
I just want to know what is the cost a year to this county for that solid waste? Did you get your summary sheet, Sandy? I didn't mean that, but
Well, the expenditures for January were around $47,000.
what's the
Do we have the
budget?
yearly budget?
The annual budget is $541,000.
Okay,
So that would be the
okay,
answer.
all right. So I knew it was around a little over $500,000, but
No, I'm sorry. That's the revenue.
Revenue.
The expenditure budget for solid waste is
Right, thank you.
$841,000.
all right. Well, you actually went to my next point. So our expenditure is up around $800,000.
Right.
Our revenue for the $1 a bag is around $500. Now, not to hold that, we haven't.
That's not all just dollar a bag, Brian. That includes the scale.
Okay, the scale, but our revenue with the $1 a bag and the scale and the construction to be is around $500,000, but our cost is $800,000. So the county runs almost a $300,000 deficit there.
Right.
And they've run that deficit since you took office.
Well, since before I took office.
Yes, you're right. But the whole time you've been in office, they've run that deficit every single year.
But let me comment one thing on that, rather than simply saying they run that deficit. This expenditure used to be like every other department, just the entire thing was spending out.
Right,
There
because
was
the
no
$1
revenue.
bag, and I understand that, but
Yeah.
what I'm saying is the deficit, that's not where we're going. The deficit we're running is we run a deficit out there for 4 years.
And we do, the revenue does not
Right,
match the cost.
that's all I'm getting to. Now, last month, and I came to you at the last workshop, and I think the workshop before Commissioner Ferguson actually was sworn in, but I think the last 2 workshops, and I've made a lot of discussion or asked about discussion on, we're now 6 years now, close to 6 or 7, that we still take cash out there. And I've asked after 6 years what we can do to change, because obviously it's not a $300,000 loss, I know that, but there's a possibility that the way we handle the cash there's a loss to the county, possibly, that we could bring some more revenue in, or look at different ways of revenue for that, knowing there's a $300,000 deficit. That being said, do I remember you saying last month from me at this podium, bringing this up, did you not ask our county clerk to put that on this month's agenda to discuss? Do you not remember saying, let's put that on the agenda for next month's workshop? I have the video, I can go back and look at it. Do you know?
Well, if you have the video, I can't deny it, but no, I don't really recall it.
Oh, you don't recall? You don't remember that?
To put it on the agenda for this.
For discussion, put it on for discussion next month?
I don't remember that, but I do not doubt it. And if
Okay,
that being the
okay.
case, I
And the reason being is we got to this month and it's not on the agenda. Okay? And it's not on the agenda. And earlier, you know, obviously, you know, some of the way that I'm coming across on the pay raises, okay, is not being received very well, because I think your priorities are wrong. And it just, I don't feel our house is in order in Gilmer County. I think you're working towards it. I think you have something that I don't want to go into no public detail, but I think you have something where our fire and rescue, there's a lot of work. I asked you to do it patiently yesterday. Our house is not completely in order in this county, and your priorities are wrong. I'm still confused on Ms. Ferguson's reasoning for needing to handle this pay raise thing first out of the box. Now, that being said, what if there's a possibility? And this is what I asked you earlier, and this is what disturbed me when I went back there. I felt treated, although you didn't say that, but I felt treated as a citizen that this is only $16,000. Now, people, they did not say that, but I felt that. I felt every time I come up here, it's only $16,000. That's what I feel. Wait, I understand, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry, but I'm thinking to myself, okay, what if? And it's a stretch. It's a stretch, because we've had other citizens come up here before, and they go and they give their dollar out there, and it makes me sound like that I think that everybody that's taking a dollar at all the trash places is not putting it in a box, and that's not what I'm saying. There's some very good, honest people work for the county out there. But what if, and we've had other citizens come up here and testify that they were very concerned because they watched at one place and never seen the dollar go in the box, and they waited for it. So we've had that testimony here from other citizens. We've had almost 6 years. We still take cash, just pure cash. What if we put that priority here? And what if accidentally we came up with $16,000 more dollars? Now, is that possible? I don't know. That's a big number. But what if we possibly came up with $16,000 more that belong to the citizens of this county to either, one, narrow a deficit that I don't know how we couldn't narrow the deficit, or two, then you could say to the citizens, hey, you know what? We want to raise the post commissioner's pay. And, you know, we look at what we found here. Look at what we did here first. I'm just saying, I mean, you can comment if you want, but I really think, all I asked you earlier on the post commissioner's pay raise, all I asked you was to hold it until you check some fiscal things in this county, did a budget, and then Mr. Clark said it had to be done by December so it could be on the ballot. Now, not to quote you, Chairman, in front of the people, because again, it's on video, but somehow you made reference to if you did it then, it may look bad on Commissioner, Miller.
It could make it personal, yeah.
It could make it personal. I'm going to tell you something, Commissioner Miller. I would be more concerned if you want to run for re-election. I'd be more concerned with the fact that you've raised the taxes as many times on the citizens in this county.
You know,
next political.
You said that, and I'm glad you brought that up tonight, because I'd like to talk about that. You made the comment in the work session and other places that we raised taxes 3 times last year. I didn't argue with you. I got to thinking about it, and I don't agree with your assessment of how you came up with 3 times. Would you kind of go over that? And I'll give you right up front.
All right, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Does the one mill, okay, and I understand the 1 mill generated before your term, okay, that went on the property taxes to pay the bond, okay?
Right.
But does the 1 mill, does the tax commissioner, all right, is the only one that can levy the taxes and has to send out the tax bills?
Okay.
So every year, am I correct, every year the mill actually legally expires and you have to renew it? Correct or incorrect?
Every year we have to set the rate and,
right.
and we renew it.
But if you don't set the rate on that mill, it would expire.
Yeah, and I see where you're going, but let me say that I very much disagree that saying because we did not let the mill expire, we've raised taxes on you. That's not what's happening here.
The mill expires, the tax goes away. You chose to put it back on.
The mill expired. We reinstated the same mill that was there the previous year. We did not raise anything. It's the same thing.
It's the same argument, Chairman, with SPLOST. Every time SPLOST comes up, We as citizens are told, we're not raising your taxes, we're renewing the tax.
You and I are not going to agree on this.
Right, we're not
I would
gonna
just
agree
like
on
to
that.
say that, from my perspective, the fact that a 1 mil gets renewed or a half mil gets renewed doesn't constitute a tax increase that we made. That doesn't count as you raise taxes 3 times over the course of the year.
We're gonna have
Now,
to
2 of those
agree to
times,
disagree.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. I know we disagree. I'm just stating my feeling here now. 2 of those times, you made the statement very publicly that we raised taxes 3 times on the people of Gilmer County last year, or this year. 2 of those times, according to your logic, is because we kept the 1.5 mils on the
I'll admit
on the
that.
capital
That's my
side.
reasoning. I call it
Okay,
raising taxes.
so I know that you understand, you call that raising taxes, and I know I'm not going to convince you otherwise. I simply want to say that I don't see it that way. And I think that it's a disservice to the people of the county when you specify that without explaining where you're getting that and letting them make the decision whether they feel that's a valid statement that we've raised their taxes. Now, the third raise that you're talking about.
Wait a minute,
Okay.
just real quick, I don't know, Mr. Miller, were you in office? So if you want to say that, that's fine. So let's say it like this. The 1 mil was in place before you took office. Every year it expires and you have to renew it. So you don't consider it raised, but the half mil you did raise.
Yes, and, and in that year, wait a minute, no, wait a minute.
2 times you raised.
In that year, we raised taxes.
Yes, you did.
That was about, what, 2 years or 3 years ago? And that year, we raised taxes.
Yes.
To continue every year beyond and say that we raised your taxes again, because that's still in place, is not right.
It's not still in place. You renewed it. So
Okay, then because we renewed it, it's still not right.
But, all right, I say 2 times, okay, that you raised taxes. So, I mean, I don't know.
Okay, you're saying 2 times we raised taxes
Yeah, the
this
one time
year.
I'll say, okay, it was before your term. I'm not going to argue that. I'm just saying I'm concerned.
If the second time you're saying we raised taxes was 2 or 3 years ago, I will accept that. We did that time. But to say that every year constitutes raising taxes again, I very much disagree with that.
Well, I think until we see that you really are looking at a way to alleviate that tax, we're going to disagree, okay? Because of the priorities and some of the
Do
things.
you disagree with how that tax is being used?
It's going to the bond, pay the bond, correct?
It is going to pay the bond, but by having that go to pay the bond, we have a little bit left over of the splash tax that we can retrofit.
Well, I don't want to get into that tonight, but you rewrote the SPLOST and you left the county loophole in it. And we've had that discussion, so I don't think we want to go there.
Well, okay, you consider it a loophole. I have made it county policy. So in my mind, it's the same thing.
Okay.
But, you know, that's something. There's a lot of things we disagree on. You're still my friend. But there's a lot of things that we do disagree on. And honestly, Brian, we're not going to agree on. I don't believe. And this is one of those things. And typically I try to just say, okay, you know, and, you know, let it go. But when you're telling people that this commission...
We're going to deal with those numbers.
Let me say something to that. If you know where the property is, the intersection of Fordtown and Old Flat Branch Road is miles away from this venue. So the intersection, the storage of traffic between the venue or the facility and that intersection, I'm not sure how much impact we would have there. The other advantage on Old Flat Branch is that it's not one way in and one way out. Flat Branch and Old Flat Branch actually forms a circle. So there is multiple ways to get from the venue out to Fordtown Road. And that would be going in the opposite direction. But I understand what Jolene is saying is that, and that's what I'm harping on, is that almost everything that we do that has, it may sound like agriculture, but it certainly has a commercial connotation and a commercial impact. We need good planning and study of that and what the impact will be. Now, where that happens, whether it happens in the planning commission and the planning staff, or whether it happens with me and Public Works, I don't have time to deal with all of those things, but I do agree that we've got to start looking at these things, because we're going to wake up one day and
I wasn't going to bring up the circle part, because the fact that anyone could possibly come the other way. Jim, that road was only paved not that many years ago, and it isn't wide enough for one car. When you go past where that creek is along there, if you meet a car, and when I'm in that big F-250, I pray that I won't meet it till after I pass Harper, because you can't pass another truck there. That road.
I understand, Jolene, I remember.
Okay, well then it's not a solution that they could come the other way. That's even worse.
No, it's not. Because if you disperse the traffic out, it's not worse. It's when you get traffic confined into something like we've got with Malfunction Junction.
Okay, I understand the difference. There's a difference though between
Spread it
confinement,
out.
but trying to get somebody. How many people in this county drive pickup trucks? I'd say a good number. And you get trying to drive on that road, because see, my house is on the Flat Branch, all right?
Yeah.
And my property is on Old Flat Branch. So I go that way all the time.
Right.
It is scary, and when it's dark, there's no line on that road, there's no shoulder, and it literally is 1.5 cars wide. Where they paved, where it used to be gravel. Thank God they finally paved it, but if you're going to put people that have been drinking on it, I mean, God help us, and now you say no.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
I know you're not, but they just approved it.
Are there any other comments? Do we need an executive session?
Can I have a short one?
Okay.
And I promise
Do we
a short one.
anticipate
No action.
action? Oh, thank you. One thing that I do want to just put into the minutes of the meeting. A number of years ago, and I'm going back probably 8 or so, somewhere in, there was read into the minutes of a meeting, the Gilmer County Board of Commissioners Rules of Decorum. And so what I want to do tonight is read into the minutes of the meeting a revision of Gilmer County Board of Commissioners Rules of Decorum. That will be the rules of decorum going forward. Not really all that different from before, but there's only 8 of them. It just take me less than a minute to read them in. Meetings shall be opened by invocation and a pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. And one of this is the old.
Yeah, that's, I don't know.
Okay. Then we'll do this next month. Never mind. It's not a big thing. We just we're going to read into the rules of decorum, and they're not going to be that different from before. Do we anticipate any action?
No action.
Okay. Then I would make a motion that we go into executive session with no action anticipated.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.